Nole Nation. Welcome to a kind of impromptu. It's been a couple weeks, another episode of the Renegade Rundown. We've got a very special episode for you guys, especially the people who've been around for a couple years. Because you look around, of course, I've got my amazing and beautiful co-host with me as always, Jen Santi. We got our guy Doug Rohan. Rohan Law VC. Make sure you're following him on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all the things. If you're in Georgia, he's got your back. If you want to know about FSU ACC stuff, we've been talking about it over a year now. I feel like he's been coming on here. We've really been breaking this thing down. We've got our guy Plant the Spear, Jesse, my guy, who's also been a regular guy on the show, along with Vince, my guy from Garnet Noel on the bottom left. They've all done shows on all this stuff. Doug's been all over the place on all kinds of shows. Again, it's been a while since we've been with you guys. Last time we talked to you guys, I think it's when ESPN announced the extension. I was kind of down in the mouth because, like everybody, there was this opportunity out here in left field. Like, it's going to be really hard, but there's a chance. You know, we could get out. We could be in the Big Ten by 26 or 25 or 27. It's already 2025 now. But along with all that, the whole time, everything came down to 2 years ago when we all broke down the math and we're like, well, we bring 15% of the eyeballs, 15% of the money. That's like 80 million. That's right up there with the SEC and the Big Ten. We could get that. We'd be great. Little unequal stuff. But no, on Amelia Island, that stuff wouldn't fly with Wake Forest and Duke and these guys who bring so much to the table. I won't throw Syracuse out there because they really did this year. But I want to give Doug the floor because he's only got about 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on how this goes. Just break things down. What exactly happened? How much is that buyout going to be? What does this mean for Florida State as the discovery never happens? We never get that March court date. And kind of as we talked about for the past year and a half, FSU gets a settlement with ACC, and it appears like FSU and Clemson just got every damn thing we wanted. Doug, am I crazy, or did pretty much go that way? Is there something I missed that we didn't get? I mean, the buyout changed. We get our extra money. 60% of the revenue is decided by what you do on TV and on the field. I couldn't be more happy. How are you feeling about it, Doug?
I could not have imagined a better scenario. Even if we had gone to a trial and won, it couldn't have possibly been this good. And the reason why is because, look, I was wrong on the timing of the settlement. I thought initially we would try to get things done before the season started, before we were in Ireland. But once the season got close and I didn't hear anything, I didn't hear any conversations about us getting close to settlement, the next thing we were laser focused on was that February 1st, 2025 ESPN opt-in. The ACC tried to argue that it was a conversation, it was a look-in, we're going to renegotiate. No. It was always the ACC subject to ESPN's decision. Do we want to continue this relationship or not? So once the season started, we focused on that February 1st date, and ESPN stepped in and said, I will continue broadcasting ACC games through 2036, but only if, and I don't have any inside sources, I don't have a memo, I'm not telling you what actually happened, I'm telling you what makes business sense. I'm telling you what 25 years of practicing law leads me to believe, and that is that ESPN stepped in and said, the only way we're going to extend this unilateral look-in provision to 2036 is if we know Clemson and Florida State are here. And so you, ACC, need to figure out, without us putting any more money in, because that was my original first thought, was the ACC would need some more money from ESPN because we needed 10 to 15,000 more, or 10 to 15 million more dollars a year to make the math work, not 2 or 3,000, 2 or 3 million in a success initiative. Sorry, second podcast and third glass. So the bottom line was, there was no way, I didn't envision a scenario where the end result would be the bottom half of the ACC accepts a haircut to make sure that the top teams get enough money to make them happy to stay until 2031 when all the other realignment takes place. So when they came out this week with the framework, I knew that that was exactly what ESPN had dictated as a part of their extension on February 1st. I thought there would be a settlement. I thought there'd be a fine agreement in the month of January. But there's a lot of people that need to meet. There's a lot of votes that need to take place. There's a lot of paperwork that needs to be filled out. And ultimately, that date came and went without having all of that homework done. So there was a one-page memorandum given to the ESPN higher up saying, this is the basic framework of what our agreement is. We're going to agree to it. And then unanimously, the entire conference said, yep, we're on board. This is what it's going to take to keep FSU and Clemson happy. We're going to go from 572 million down to 75 million. We're going to go from you need to be stuck here till 2036 to, yeah, 2031 is okay because that's when all the other contracts are going to be negotiated. And the reason why I say, coming back to what I initially started with, this is better than winning at trial, is because when you win at trial, you either win everything or lose everything. There is no splitting the baby. And at the end of the day, with Texas and Oklahoma just moving to the SEC, some dust needs to settle before there's an appetite for us to join another conference. Yes, we are attractive. Yes, somebody wants us. No, we couldn't have those conversations until this settlement occurred.
Yeah, it's not worth the Big Ten blowing up what they've got going. 29, 2030, when everything's open again, it makes perfect sense. But one thing we talked about a million times is just like, there's no way ESPN is extending this deal without some sort of guarantee, some kind of handshake behind whatever the deal is that FSU and Clemson are at least going to be there for a couple more years. Because when you break down the numbers, when you look at who they put on primetime this year, like it took Miami being like 10-0 and FSU being 1-8 before they would start putting them in the primetime spots. Like it's nuts. So I don't want to ramble on too much, but yeah, I 100% agree that there was something going on there. The way I want to do this is give everybody kind of a chance to give a question or a comment before Doug and give him a chance to go. Starting with Jen. Go ahead, Doug, with your thought, and then we'll give Jen a thought and go around to Vince and then Jesse.
That's perfect. Let me give one more piece of data to the scenario. What I described with that February 1st court date was about 60% of the equation, because the other 40% of the equation was 2 depositions had been given so far, and we were about to turn to John Swafford and the ACC portion of depositions. Those were scheduled for next week. So between the ACC contract and the discovery depositions taking place, that's why this was the perfect marriage to announce this settlement now, because there was no way that they wanted to pursue the discovery on the ACC side.
All right, Jen, pop the seal, if you will. How are we feeling? Any questions for Doug? What do you got? It's pretty cool time as we sit here and count down to Bama, but just knowing that we got some money coming, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Less than 100 million we could get out of here in 3 or 4 years.
So the only downside to what we got is that we're still in the ACC with the other losers in the conference. That's really it. Otherwise, you got everything you wanted. You got more money. You got literally everything you wanted. I am stunned that Florida State actually bent over the ACC and they were like, yes, sir, give me more. It was like the movie. Oh God, what's that movie? Come on, someone help me out.
Gladiator
with Belushi. Yes, sir, give me more. Come on. Someone
Yes,
help
sir,
me out.
may I have
Oh,
another?
Animal House.
Yeah.
It was like Animal
Thank
House.
you, sir. May I have another?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. Can I have another? That's exactly what they did. The only unfortunate thing was the media acting like Clemson was the one who did it. That's unfortunate. And I know Clemson adding on to it, helped, blah, blah, blah. But, they didn't start it. they had to, come in late, and that's fine. I'm glad they did, unlike North Carolina and Miami and everybody else. But, the media just loves them from Clemson, and that's A-okay. However, this was amazing. I cannot believe Florida State got out of the ACC exactly what they wanted. That's never happened. We don't ever get anything out of the ACC that we want. Ever, 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 ever. So to me, that's giving Discovery would have been bad. Anybody else want to say? I mean, because again, like Florida State and the ACC, like the ACC gives no shits about Florida State.
My
Right.
favorite part is that the NC State and Virginia Tech fans are now screaming about the incompetence of the ACC leadership.
Oh,
And we're
mean,
no shit.
yeah, no
You
kidding.
mean
No
your
kidding.
presidents at Amelia Island, you asshole?
Yeah, like
We would have taken like 5% 2 years ago when Mike Alford started
Yeah.
this shit.
yeah.
We're a long ways from there now, buddy.
I mean, Doug, you tell me if I'm wrong. Does this tell you that Discovery would have been really bad for
Yes.
what I believe
100%.
is ESPN?
ESPN and the ACC. The ACC would not have recovered. No, because we're the petulant stepchild screaming and yelling, wah, 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 throwing a temper tantrum. Once they're under oath and either claiming the Fifth Amendment or admitting to all their malfeasance, the ACC would not have recovered. Right now, the ACC has the opportunity to exist in 2040. If Discovery had continued forward and all the malfeasance had been on display, they would have been sued into oblivion and would cease to exist.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, if you just look at what they got out of this, it just tells me that there was, my God, I wish we could have gotten some of those text messages and emails. That's all I'm going to say. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. Under the pine trees, that whole thing. Wife gets a job, son gets a job. Every time they can extend the contract, you get a raise and a promotion. We could spend hours, and we will talk about it a little bit later. But Vince, jump in here. What stands out to you? And if any questions, if you have them for Doug, how are you feeling about this stuff, man?
I'm feeling great. Once the February 1st thing came about, and everybody, I don't know why, but everybody was like, I can't believe they extended this or they opted into this. It's like, there's no way they weren't going to. We are the cheap date. The ACC is the cheap date, and they need the inventory, right? And so why would they not opt in? The only thing that they needed to make sure of was that Florida State and Clemson would be appeased for a little bit, and that's when the pressure started. And then, I mean, that's when the pencils really start to get sharpened. And then the Florida Supreme Court says the ACC, no, we're not going to deal with this. This thing is going to go forward. And it's kind of like, I'm not much of a bowler, but I can imagine if I was a good bowler and I threw a lot of strikes and I'm getting close to that 300 game, right? I'm in the 8th frame and I bowled a strike and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And then, the 9th frame, I bowl a strike. And then the Supreme Court says, no, ACC, we're not doing this. That's another strike. And I'm feeling like I got a 300 game coming. That's kind of the way I feel. It's not, I wish we were out. I wish we were out and done. But anybody that thinks that we're going to take till 2030, I think we're going to be out before then. I think Doug does as well. Probably 2028, probably 2029, probably at the latest. And the last thing I want to say is I've heard the term haircut for the last week now, and it is a great visual to me. I don't know.
$7 million.
Yeah. So think about if you have kids and your kid's sassy, right? And they're trying to feel their oats a little bit, and they're trying to, talk back to dad and letting the hair grow long. And, I'm the fastest growing kid, in the house. And, it's time for a haircut, young man. We're going to take you to the barber shop. We're going to put you on the booster seat at at the barbershop, and we're going to have the barber put a bowl on your head, and we were going to cut you a mushroom cut. That is what happened to Wake Forest and all these other schools that just, for some reason, thought that that they were going to come out of this any other way than what they have.
The hubris of those people to deny a little bump in an equal, revenue sharing. Back 2 years ago, Mike Alford first started this, man. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
You've got the fastest growing fan base, but
You
sit
do.
down in your kitty chair and here's your bowl. Here's your bowl. It's going to be all right. We'll get you a fade next year. Okay, we'll take you to the big man's barbershop. But for now, your little 30,000, whatever, your people that sit on a hill because you can't afford bleachers. It's all right. FSU's got their $100 million football only facility. It's done. But you brought up a great angle there that I hope I didn't interrupt you, but I haven't spent a ton of stuff breaking this stuff down. I thought 2030 was a good year because of the Big Ten redoing their deal. I know there was people, ourselves included, that thought, do you go independent from 26 to 28 and then jump Big Ten? That's kind of out of the window now. So I would like to hear Doug's thoughts on what you said there about possibly being before 2030, whether it's 29 or 28.
Yeah, I was on Vince's show Monday night. And that's where I was kind of laying out the timeline with a 2031 contract deadline for the Big Ten. They're going to be talking about the contract extension in 2030. And if they're talking about the contract extension in 2030, they're going to want Florida State to be in the fold as a full member prior to those negotiations taking place. So now we're talking about 2029. Well, if we're going to join in 2029, it takes a year, really probably 2 years to make that transition take place. So now we're talking about 2027, 2026 before we're having those conversations about whether or not we're going to go to the Big Ten. And truthfully, the transition to the SEC is much faster because I believe, and I've said this on other shows, that the AAU thing is a thing, and Florida State is on track for AAU membership, but probably not until 2028. We have doubled our research in the medical field every year for the last 3 years. We still need to double it, and we still need to double it before we're reaching the thresholds that the AAU really would be interested in. So AAU membership doesn't come until 2028. Big Ten invitation, I believe, is waiting for that AAU membership. Does the SEC come in 2027 and say, don't worry about AAU because we're a bunch of backwood rednecks and we just want you geographically to protect you from Fox? That's the question. It's not that the SEC wants us. It's does the SEC want to prevent us from going to the Big Ten? And so 2027 is an important year because that's when the conversation is going to take place. That's when the notice is going to occur. That's when things will start happening.
Man, what a freaking point. Yeah. Would the Big Ten rather negotiate with the Florida State as a part of their, package or without? That makes great sense. We saved the best for last. My guy, Jesse, somebody who really spends his time out there helping the community. He does an amazing job, what he does with his 9 to 5, and somehow manages to continue like the regular do podcasts and not miss like me when I started working crazy hours. So with the final question for Doug before we send him on his rant, maybe pull up a few receipts. What's on your mind? What haven't we talked about yet with this thing that really piques your interest, my guy?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on again. Like you said, working crazy hours. I worked last night from 7 at night to 7 in the morning, did a podcast today. So still have not been to sleep yet. We're burning the midnight oil. But yeah, I mean, I just love talking about it. And I think this is a huge win for Florida State. And really, I think the first thing that I wanted to do when this came out was to really give a shout out to the FSU administration, right? Because they went to bat for the university for the good of the university, not for what the critics had to say, not for being a good member of the conference, not for all this. They took a lot of arrows for this. And they still stood ground, and because they knew what they had. They knew the value that Florida State brought, and they were going to fight to get it. And I think that was really important. And so I think it's a huge win for Florida State, in this, to get really everything that you wanted. And one of the things that I was going to say to Doug's point with the AAU is I think that, yes, I do think that when you look at the court date, I don't think, we have to let them know by August that we were going to be intending to leave for the following year. So we're pretty much stuck for 2025. Doug probably can speak on this better than I can, but the court process probably was not going to be wrapped up by August. So you're probably stuck for 2026. So then realistically, whether you leave in 27, 28, or even 30, you're only adding a few years to this, 3 to 4 years to this, and you're getting – $15 to probably $20 million more per year to wait for that date to come. Because the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is the success initiative that's been put in place. That did not come about until the litigation was put into place either. So you forced their hand in 3 different ways. And so I think that was a big benefit there. And so now with Florida State actively pursuing the AAU accreditation, I do think the long-term move is to go to the Big Ten. But if my mind serves me correctly from doing all this realignment episodes, the Big Ten only has escalators. So you're only going to come in as a partial share member. And technically right now, you're actually going to make more in the ACC than Oregon is going to make in the Big Ten currently, and Washington. They're making $35 million a year plus $1 million a year for every year that they're in it. So you're actually in a really good position. I think if you were to try and go to the SEC, they do have the pro-rata clause where you can come in at a full share immediately. So I think that could probably happen very fast. I do think what you guys were talking about, where Fox wants to plant that flag in the Southeast, in that massive Florida market. They see the numbers that Florida State brings to the table, and ESPN wants to keep them out of that. And I think one of the most important things here is I saw this on X, a shout out to, I think it was Wild Ute that put it out, where you look at Florida State's TV numbers from 2019 to 2024, excluding the COVID year, from Nielsen rated games. Florida State brought in 15.23% of the the viewership. Clemson was at 14.73, both averaging over 2 million weekly viewers. 14 of the 17 teams in the ACC didn't even average 1 million viewers. So when these schools had to take that haircut, they knew it was a necessary evil. They could pound their chest all they want before this hit the table, but why else would they sign this unless they knew that too? So they knew what was coming. And I think in this settlement, both sides get a little bit of something, right? That's what a settlement is. And so the ACC gets to live to fight another day to figure out what their future looks like. I don't know that they die in 2030, but it's going to be a crossroads for their future, because they're going to have to add teams. And, I think the other thing too is when people talk about appetite for expansion, if you think about it, look across the board of college football right now. How many more big fish are out in the sea right now? There's Florida State, there's Clemson, there's Notre Dame. Maybe you could argue UNC from an athletic department standpoint, certainly not really football. And I mean, the TV numbers kind of pants them in public. So why would if there's any appetite for expansion, why would they not want the Florida State? Why would they not want the Clemson? They're not going to get Notre Dame until their hand is forced. So I think that the appetite for expansion is there. I think you will see Florida State make their way out of the ACC as soon as possible. And, again, you're collecting more money in the meantime. On the back end, you're saving literally $500 million or more to the exit fee. And so I think when you look at the timeline for when to get out, it's just a win all across the board for Florida State. They got everything they wanted. And the only question that I would throw to Doug would be, when the door finally opens, can we retroactively sue Miami and North Carolina to recoup our legal fees?
Yes.
But the one thing I will say to that, and then I'll throw it back to you, George, is, for the people who during this, I saw so many comments and posts and things about, Florida State's just wasted $4 million in legal fees or whatever the estimated cost was. And I'm like, man, you can potentially, because whether or not we earn the success initiative, which they said SMU and Clemson got about $4 million out of last year just for getting into the playoffs and then getting eliminated, whether we suck or not, because you look at last year, and hopefully that's not the case, but you look at last year, we were top 5 viewed ACC team in a 2-win season. SMU played an ACC championship, and they didn't bring in a quarter of the viewers that we did. So that money it's going to be there as long as we're not terrible. We know that. So Florida State's going to make back these. They're going to recoup these legal fees probably 2 to 3-fold in the very first year. So to me, the return on investment and everything you got out of it, man, this is a slam dunk for Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
Muted. George, you're muted.
George.
You're muted.
I'm muted. I was saying you hit so many things that I just want to take off on, specifically like 15 million for us, 14.7 for Clemson. When you drop down to Miami and North Carolina, it's like 5 and 4 million. It's like a third, a quarter, a fifth. And as you said, as it gets down lower and lower, it averages below $1 million. But I will let Doug go off, give his final rant, respond to what you said before we get deep in the weeds and start pulling all of our receipts as well.
Look, one of my favorite new tools in my bar is the Mjolnir bottle opener, FSU styled Mjolnir. We are worthy. We are worthy of what has happened. We put ourselves out there. Our leadership, President McCullough, Michael Alford, they went all in. They pushed the chips onto the table all in on this process, and their success was beyond our wildest expectations. So the reality is, yes, we need to recover from a 2-10 season. Yes, we need to keep the viewership up. So please tune all 3 TVs in your house to the FSU games whenever they're on ESPN. But our leaders knew what they had in the product at Florida State and knew the existential threat that doing nothing posed to our survival. They had the wherewithal to do the numbers. They had the wherewithal to see where this trajectory was going, that it was unsustainable, and that something had to change. And look, we took this to the July 2023 meetings, and ultimately the ACC balked, and now they're giving us exactly what we had hoped for. And I am so thankful for that, because before this started, I had 500 followers on my Twitter page and nobody was paying attention to any of my ads. And now this week, when I put up a post about a work injury burn accident, everybody thinks that that's related to all of the receipts that we have kept from all of the litigation over the last year, now that I have 5,000 followers. So I'm very grateful for how this has worked out. I'm very grateful for the exposure that you have given me, George and Jen. I was reluctant to get into this space initially because this is outside my practice area. I'm not a contract lawyer. But when all the other FSU contract lawyers were too chicken shit to put themselves out in social media, I decided to step up and I decided to share, because I was curious about this. I wanted to learn about this. And hundreds of tweets later and dozens of hours of shows with you all, nobody can pull a receipt on me and say that whatever I said was wrong, other than me hoping, not expecting, but hoping a settlement was going to be coming before Ireland. And once that happened, it was very clear that the settlement was coming in relationship to February 1st. So it has been a pleasure to be a part of this process. I've truly enjoyed being a part of your all's shows. And to the extent that something comes up in the future that we need to talk about, I will come back. But ultimately, this is my 7th show this week on my 7th different program. And it's my 7th time saying, I really appreciate what all of you have done for me and my firm, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. But with that, we're signing out. I'm not going to be an expert on the House litigation. I'm not going to be an expert on NIL. I was curious about this lawsuit, and that's why I wanted to invest the time and the effort. And so, cheers.
Who knows? Maybe it's College World Series. We get to talk about some FSU baseball.
Yeah,
and get into that. We got all kind of stuff. We'll have you back for one reason or another.
Yeah, but Doug, you're still going to come for happy hour, right? Because you know I love you.
We'll be here to drink periodically.
Thank you. That works.
Y'all have a great rest of your night. Take care.
Enjoy. Tell your amazing family. Y'all enjoy your Friday night.
Bam. So, and then there was 4. And we can get a little chaotic now. Everybody can talk over everybody. We can have some fun with this stuff. But one thing Jesse said was like, and this is what I kept hammering, like, you want to act like FSU's assholes and they shouldn't be doing this and they're bad faith partners. And then you look around the country and there's literally only 2 national brands in the entire country that isn't in the Big Ten or the SEC, save Notre Dame. You look at the numbers we hammered, 15 million, 14 million. It's just like, where do you people learn math that you have these opinions? Like, something has to get, if you've got, Drake playing in dive bars week after week, but his songs are number 1 on Billboard, eventually Arena is going to offer him a spot. Like, that's the best metaphor I could come up for it. So yeah, all this stuff breaking, like, we all wanted to be in the Big Ten. We wanted to, like, just get away from ESPN, get away from the ACC, be done with this shit. But we've also said along ways the whole time, the number was like, if we're being realistic, the exit fee shouldn't be anything more than 140 million. And now with the new clauses year by year, it pretty much goes from 150 down to 75 eventually, like, right where we talked about. We talked about the 15% and what the revenue share should be. Bam, we got exactly what we wanted there. Pretty fired up about it. Anybody can go off, with anything on their mind right now, and I'll kind of regroup and finish my beer. Everybody out there, cheers to you guys. Thanks for joining us. Crack a cold one, if you will. I'm not a big drinker, but Jen was talking about, she already started a cocktail, and I've been working crazy hours. So Friday night, I bought me a 6-pack. So we're drinking with you guys out there, and we appreciate y'all that are here with us.
That's what it's all about. I got a quick thought about the numbers too, and I'm rocking water tonight, so I trying to be healthy in 2025.
And hydrated, baby.
Yeah, exactly. But the one thing I do want to say here too is I think first off, the biggest win out of this is the fact that you get to take your media rights with you now, right? That is obviously the one thing that makes the biggest difference. But going back to the numbers, something that we were talking about a second ago with FSU's average viewership and things like that. The one thing that I think is the most important to realize here is this is also Florida State's viewership numbers playing against crap ACC teams, right? Yes, Clemson brings numbers. Miami against Florida State brings numbers. But you look at what Florida State averages in ACC games.
Yeah.
And then you look back to that LSU game a few years ago. The one in 2022 was one of the top 5 most watched games of the season. Even the freaking Orange Bowl debacle, which, I think everybody was just kind of hate watching there, was still like record numbers. And so you imagine you put Florida State in Saturdays, not Fridays, because we can get out of the high school conference eventually, but you put them in these Saturday matchups against Alabama on a yearly basis, against the Georgia, LSU's, the teams, the big brands in the Big Ten. These numbers are going to skyrocket. It is going to be more. And I think we have had enough appetite for these big games that the networks see that, and they know that, because they know, like, okay, well, yeah, they're doing a million or something like that against UNC, but they did 9 million or 7 million or whatever it was against LSU. So they know if they can get Florida State to those big matchups, that's huge. And then I think it even goes farther than that when you talk about the impact even on the city of Tallahassee. We've all go to a lot of FSU games. How many ACC fan bases travel? Clemson?
None.
Like 10 Miami fans make the trek up, just to get drunk and fight in the stands. But like, you look at that, and this is what I was telling somebody the other day. If you don't think that the difference, if you want to know the difference that it's going to make, you turn on August 30th or 31st, whichever one it is, that Alabama game, and you look at the environment in Tallahassee, and then you turn your TV back on when it's like, Virginia Tech or Wake Forest or something like that, and you look at the difference in the two, and you just imagine what that is like every single Saturday. Now, you may not come out with as many wins, but Florida State will be competitive in those conferences, and it'll be bigger matchups every single Saturday. So, man, this is more than just like, we need some more money for our football program. This is going to be a ripple effect that's going to, affect a lot of things. Now, obviously, Florida State has to clean up their side of the street. You got to improve the men's basketball, program too, to earn the most money while you wait to get out. Obviously, that's another subject there with Loucks supposedly going to be our new basketball coach there. You got to get the eyes on the TVs, because while you wait to get out, you can squeeze as much as you can out of the ACC, and that's on you. But man, again, like, you think about the potential of what Florida State can do in these other conferences. And, something we said on our show was like, Florida State has a history of doing a lot more with a lot less. Imagine what Florida State can do when they're on equal footing with the Floridas of the world and the Alabamas of the world. When you're talking about the money that they're going to bring in, I mean, it's just the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, the Noles are going to be more than competitive in whichever league they're going to go to, because they've shown that they can do that. And the way the system is now, you can have 2 losses.
Yep.
And make the playoff. You can have 3 losses and make the playoff. And if you happen to be in the SEC, the incestuous league, then you can have 4, 5, or 6 losses apparently, and your commissioner will go to bat for you in a no holds barred 60-minute interview in prime time. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about them going to any league. Like you mentioned, we've done well, more than well, with having less, and getting our house in order. Last season, I think, is a bump in the road. But even with the bump, we're still leading the league. And one of the reasons that I think some of these schools decided to sign off on this deal where they got the haircut is I think it's known within the group when Florida State and Clemson are going to leave. I think they know that. I think behind closed doors, Florida State and Clemson said, we're going to be gone by 27, 28. And you're like, okay, well, those smaller schools should be concerned about that. I don't know, because ESPN is kind of signed on at the level they're signed on at. And now all of a sudden, the fastest growing fan base in the world moves up that ladder of viewership in that league. Now it becomes a bunch of mediocre viewership from top to bottom. Like you cut off the top part of it, and now those teams are able to get that brand initiative because now the bigger brands have moved on to the bigger pie.
That was another big talking point of mine. And I think it played out. I think, to your point about the lesser brands and what it's going to look like in 2030, I think it's inflation. I think ESPN signed on, okay, it's going to be 60 million by 2036 or 70 million by 2036 or whatever the case may be. But by then, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be getting 250 million. Like, just take a trip back to 2018 and go look at what the value of the dollar is versus what it is now in 2025, and then project to 2030 what it's going to be. I think that's a big part of it, and that's why the Big Ten, restructuring in 2030, the SEC, I think 2031. I might have had those backwards. Like, that was the problem to begin with. This is why in 2011 and 2012, when Rohan was talking about this has been going on for 15 years, we all knew it's crazy to sign a deal through 2027 or whatever it was back then, when the SEC and the Big Ten are going to keep restructuring and everybody knows it. Like, what is the Cowboys' value now versus what they were in 2005?
Yeah,
you're talking about hundreds of millions versus whatever, working on 10 billion now. This thing only goes in one direction with inflation and the growth of everything else. And to the point of doing more with less. The erector set to finally get the bricks and everything, like the football only facility and the stadium being renovated. Like, if you've been in the Champions Club, I don't know if you've been lucky enough to be in there. Like, holy shit, it's like a mid-club section at an NBA basketball game, but better. Like prime rib and ribeye steaks and all you can drink Cokes, beers, mixed drinks, all that stuff. Like, it's amazing. So yeah, I couldn't be more excited. I know Jen's over there. She's got something she's been ready to say for a minute. Where are we going next with this conversation? I got a million ways to take it, but what's on your mind, Jen?
Look, I think that the value of the ACC has plummeted as much as Shador Sanders' draft stock has in the last couple weeks. Because I think everybody fucking knows that Florida State is leaving probably in 28, maybe 29, could be as early as 27. I think everybody knows that. And by the way, the ACC gave them the number There's no grant of rights, the ironclad grant of rights anymore. And they get to take it with them when they leave. It doesn't matter anymore. They're done. They get to go do whatever the hell they want to do. Them and Clemson. I mean, y'all tell me where I'm wrong here, but I think this is the most pathetic attempt by anybody in the ACC to be like, oh, hey, look, we're sticking around till 2031. No, you're not. No, you're not. You gave your biggest assets an out, and they get to take everything they have with them. You think 135 million, if they get an offer now, which other leagues or conferences won't even be charged with tampering anymore? They're not going to be charged with tampering if they call them. That's it. I mean, I don't think it happens for a couple of years, obviously, because, the Big Ten's going to redo their deal. The SEC is going to redo their deal. But I just think this is pathetic for the ACC, these fans, and everything else that's going on. I think the ACC stock has fallen faster than Shedeur Sanders. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, it's already terrible. The stock is already terrible. I don't know how it can get any lower. I mean, everybody already knew that the leadership was incompetent. It's amazing, by the way, that, Doug said, I don't remember, somebody said that all these other fan bases now are upset with the leadership. Like, why haven't you been upset with the leadership for the last 2 decades? I don't know why. But, the ACC didn't have much of a choice. Back in 2023, when Florida State came to the table and said, this isn't going to work for us. By the way, behind closed doors, for if there are any FSU haters here watching the show tonight that have called us crybabies and we should have done things in private and all these other things that we've been hearing for the last 2 years, they tried to do that. They tried to do it behind closed doors.
Yep.
They tried to do it in a gentleman way. But no one wanted to hear anything about it. And the reason why they didn't want to hear anything about it is because they were under the impression, because of what the leadership had told them and because of what, just general consensus in the world around us said, we're locked in. We're hostages. There's no way we can get out. So suck it up, Florida State. You're going to make what you're going to make. And by the way, quit losing games. Why would you want to go to another league if you can't even win the league that you're in? It's about winning games, and I get that. But trust me, everyone, Florida State goes 2-10, and they still dominate the viewership. That is not going to change. Right. That is not going to change, and it's not. And another reason why it's not going to change is because now that we are all part of that, we all as fans know now that we have a tangible focus to get the university more money just by turning on the TV.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a rant here because this is something.
George, wait.
Go ahead,
who is my stalker real quick? Because we need to call his name out and see if he's going to show up because he's the biggest hater in the world. What's his name again?
Bring him.
Carrie, Tennessee fan. Come on.
Oh God. It's like
he's usually on here like every time.
Gary Carson. I think we finally lost him.
Gary Carson. Okay, there we go.
I think the Tennessee dude is gone.
Imagine if in 2023, Alfred goes into that meeting and they talk these things out and they're like, you know what? That makes sense. Let's figure this out. We wouldn't have gotten near what we are, what we have right now. We're better off. We're better off for them being ignorant to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm happy that it turned out this way. Has it been frustrating and have I been kind of angry about it? Sure. But Florida State, other than the landing spot being known, we control our own destiny. We know what the number is, and the viewership goes with us wherever we go. So
Yep.
Yeah, I'm here to tell you, and we talked about this a lot. Anything under $200 million, that check's sitting there. It's on fire. It's ready to be written when the time comes, and it's going to be a lot less than that when we leave. But the rant I wanted to go on, because you brought up a few different things there, and I just want to take you guys back a year ago. Okay, a year ago, I'm talking about the Big 12. Oklahoma and Texas is leaving, but they're still talking about, oh, well, they're a competitor with the ACC. They're going to get close to what they get in money and all these things, and TV this and TV that, and money that. Well, the juxtaposition of what the Big 12 did in ratings this year versus an FSU at 2-10, the juxtaposition of those teams, all the teams that voted no on unequal revenue distribution, no on helping FSU and Clemson out to stay in the league, that also voted yes to bring 3 bottom feeder teams into the league. SMU, I like you and all. Hopefully you can grow
I
up.
don't.
But, Cal and these other schools, bringing them in just the stark contrast of a team that averages like 300,000 viewers a game. Oh, but Cal played Florida State in like week 3 or 4, so they got a couple million there. Just playing Florida State like tripled their average for the year. And you put it across the board, and the fact that FSU got 3 or 4 primetime games and Miami only got 2. I think the ACC literally only got like 2 ABC games the entire year. They were just stacking SEC. I think all of that added into the fact that the Florida courts kept it, and they were like, no, we're not transferring it to North Carolina. We're going to keep going on. We're going to keep going on. Like, I think the litigation and the kind of the talk around everything, just the fact that they added those 3 teams last year and how it turned out, like that was going to be an issue. The thought of having to talk about why Swofford made the decision to stick with Raycom instead of going with ESPN in 2008 and then in 2012 and then in 2016 and over and again, when you could just see the values of everything go down. It just became an untenable situation. I don't want to get into politics or anything like that on here, but it just goes into kind of everything. And kind of like there was a point in time in America, in the U.S., in the world, when there was a couple people who had a voice and could say, "This is what it is, and this is how it goes." You do one for the Gipper. These are student athletes. They shouldn't get paid and stuff. In this day and age, it's all about numbers and facts, and the information is out there. That's what the internet, with social media, and kind of the things that have happened the last couple of years where free speech has happened. And you got to be crazy. You just got to be crazy to think that FSU is in a bad situation or FSU is a bad partner for doing this. They're literally carrying the league. Imagine if, our guy A-Rod, while he was at Seattle, they were like, oh, man, we saw him at McDonald's. He shouldn't be eating there. That means they're hurting the turnout for the game. No, motherfucker. Everybody's there to see A-Rod. They're not there for the Seattle, whatever. So I know that was a bit of a tangent, but to go fool around all of this and then watch all the Big 12 teams get, hundreds of thousands of viewers while Florida State was like 1-8 and getting 2 or 3, 4 million. It's just a good time. We can talk about Luke Loucks. I'm fired up for that. I think that's pretty cool that of all the people you're going to pick, you pick Luke Loucks, the guy who assisted all the game winners back in 2012 for the.
I got a good story about this.
He's also a defensive guy, like that's doing this crazy stuff on the defensive coordinator for the Spurs. That's who you hired to replace Leonard Hamilton. Go ahead, Jen. What do you got?
I got a great story for this. All right. So was it 2013 or was it 2012? They played North Carolina. I believe it was 2013. I'm sitting there getting my hair cut, whatever. I'm getting my hair cut. My hair was like down to here. I mean, it was so long. And what did Luke Loucks do in that game? What was it, 4? I mean, it was crazy. Every 3 he put up just sunk. And I'm sitting there and I stood up and the lady who was cutting my hair accidentally cut this huge V going down this way because I freaked out during one of his threes. I mean, it was crazy. I was so excited. because they just blew out North Carolina. Remember Roy Williams took his team off the floor. I mean, it was incredible. And so I had a big V cut in my hair at this moment. And like the lady goes, "I'm so sorry." I was like, "I don't give a shit." Like my hair, I had a bob for 6 months because of Luke Loucks. That's all I'm going to say. Thank
Luke
you, Luke.
Loucks, Michael Snare. It was a fun time to really watch FSU basketball.
Oh, it was the best.
It grew and grew all the way until 2020. We'll never get over that, not getting to see that team with like 6 NBA players on it, and I get the chance to play. But what do y'all think? Any thoughts on the Luke Loucks hire, or any of my rant or anything as we get into about 15 minutes here? We usually do an hour 15, maybe a little longer. We'll see how it goes. Guys, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We'll try to respond. I've been trying to respond the best I can. I've seen a lot of witty remarks down there. Somebody making jokes about my vocabulary. I don't know if I said any large words out there. They're talking about, damn, we've never seen George a couple beers in, but I'm here with you guys. We're having fun.
I do want to make one point on what you were saying earlier that I think is important. Is first off, back to your rant, is like I've seen it before where the graphic where how the percentage of viewership that Florida State is responsible for playing other teams, and Clemson as well. And so, I mean, you think about what the viewership for this conference is going to do when they leave, when they don't have those games to play, because now we're getting a few years behind here, but I think in like 22 or 23, the ACC had a certain amount of games over 4 million viewers, which is like a benchmark in the TV world. And all but one of them, if not every single one of them, involved Florida State or Clemson. There were no other games, or maybe one other game at most, that involved the other ACC team. So they know the value too. And the other thing I want to say to that is when you talk about, and I know nobody on this show feels bad for anybody in the ACC, but under an equal revenue sharing model, now I know there's boosters and ticket sales and things like that are extraneous, that have nothing to do with the TV money. All of these programs, and I think this really goes to Vince's point here about where they felt like they had a security blanket, because they felt like Florida State and Clemson were locked in based on what the leadership was telling them. But they had the same TV payout and the same opportunity to invest in their football programs to bring up the conference like Florida State and Clemson did. And they chose not to. They chose to instead ride the coattails of the programs who were investing like a national power. So miss me with the feeling bad for the other teams, because I mean, Florida State, right? Like we invested and they could have too. And it was actually a few years back when what's his name came in, the commissioner came in, they actually told him, you need to push your football program, because that's the only way we're going to move this conference forward. And these programs have chose not to. So I can't feel bad for people who are a victim of their own decisions, right? And so I just can't feel sorry for you. And so I think, when you look realistically, who are the only teams in general in the conference that try and compete on a national power stage? Like it's Florida State, it's Clemson. Miami hasn't been there in 20 years. And then really outside of Florida State, Clemson, and I guess you can consider Georgia Tech now that they had last year against Georgia where they took them to 8 overtimes and things like that. But that's been a really lopsided rival for a long time. None of the other teams in this conference play against an SEC rival every single year in and year out. And none of those other administrations have to go back to their boosters and their supporters and go, look, man, I mean, we're trying to compete, but we're $50 million behind in the growing revenue gap. So I think that's important, to think about where Florida State and Clemson were coming with this. You're trying to compete for national championships. You directly compete against the SEC every year. These other teams in this conference are like, hey, we make the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Like that's a pretty solid season for us. And so, I just think that's a really big point there when you look at where the other ACC teams stand in this. And then, as far as Luke Loucks go, like, man, I'm excited for it. 34 years old, young guy who can relate to the recruits. He's got a championship ring that he can walk into the living room with it on his finger from his time with the Warriors. The only kind of like hesitation I have with Loucks right now is that he has not been in the college game as a coach yet. And so you're going to have to see the recruiting aspect there as well. But I do think that you can surround him with some recruiters on his staff. Obviously, the realistic conversation that we talked about on our show today, that some of the numbers have come out when you look at the revenue sharing. Florida State is we're a football school and a basketball conference. We're not giving the same resources that a lot of these that these other teams in this conference are going to do to basketball. So he's going to have to create some excitement from the donors, the Rising Spear and things like that, to try and get some NIL money in here to really have that success. But I mean, you're asking a guy to come into to lead a basketball program at a football school and a basketball conference right now and kind of work magic. So I think I'm really excited about it because he's younger. He's going to be more up to date. He's got NBA cachet, championship, tenure there with the Warriors. And I think it's going to be a good hire. Just you need to get some recruiters around him. And, and also to that note, like, I know it didn't end the way maybe we wanted it to, but shout out to Leonard Hamilton, who kept this program really kind of respectable for being a basketball coach at a football school and a basketball conference.
Yeah, what a nod to Leonard hiring Luke Loucks. And that was the last thing I was saying. Bringing in the defensive coordinator from an NBA team who has all these crazy ideas and is going to, kind of continue the tradition. It's a beautiful thing. But, yeah, I agree 100% with everything you said. Like, it's insane. You're the fastest growing fan base. You get the same check FSU does every year. Why do you not have 40,000 seats in your fucking stadium? Why is it that Boston College cries poor every year and we can't keep up? You're getting the same money we are. We've talked about this before when we've had money people, accountants and stuff on the show. The majority of college football teams, specifically the ACC to a crazy degree, if they just spent the interest off their endowments or the money they received via the ACC and different grants and things of that nature, what they spend on sports is like a fraction of that. Like they only take serious what they take serious. So yeah, I agree 100%. Vince, we're almost at an hour here. Any thoughts? Is there anything we haven't got into? I know we haven't talked about baseball. I have to get back to Jesse on that. I think the baseball team's 14-0. But just as an FSU fan, I couldn't be more excited. Obviously sad about the spring game. That's affected a little bit of the coverage. But practice is getting going here soon. Tommy Castellanos is out there being a leader. We've got some recruiting shit going on. What are you feeling? What's on your mind before we get out of here? And of course, Jen is up next. I know she's got something stewing in the chats. People are talking shit, asking where any hat is. I don't know. He said he might jump on here. I haven't seen him in the chat or anything. I know he
to be honest,
about billable hours last time I talked to him. So I tried to tell him that it was going to be worth a couple $100 million. That $2 million was. So I'm glad that aged well.
To be honest with you, I said on our show last night that I had to apologize because I've not been in the loop on any of the recruiting. Like I've kind of tuned all that out because I've been so focused on the settlement, and I've been really excited about the baseball team, and I've been wondering about the basketball coach scenario. And so this is the beauty of being a fan of this university, is that there are significant programs other than football. Football drives it all, no doubt about it. But there are other programs that I am invested in, including the Marching Chiefs, by the way. And so I've been like totally invested in all these other things. The baseball team won tonight 10-1.
Absolutely.
And the softball team was winning pretty big. The last that I looked there, the women's basketball team lost to UNC today. Tonight, didn't have a great game. So their tournament's done. But I just say, as a Nole, just to wrap this up for me, this has been a great week. This has just been a great week. And I feel, even though we're not to the end destination yet, I think, and I've said, and I will continue to say, we're closer than people think. Quit thinking that it's 2030. We are going to find out about it years before 2030 on where we're going. So enjoy the fact that we are in control of our rights. That in and of itself should make you happy.
Absolutely. And hey, Vince, what do you think about Luke Loucks?
Love Luke Loucks. I loved him as a player. I think Jesse started to go down this road a little bit. I think he's got to get the program in a respectable upward trend in the next 2 years. And then There's going to be other kind of money coming in when we move to a new league, and then you're going to watch that thing take off. I'm not expecting like a major rocket to the moon this first season. I'm not.
Yeah.
But I think we need to see an energy level change. I think we need to see an investment from the program in general to get out and, like you said, Jesse, to get donors involved, or a lot of the other sports do that, and I think with that, laying that foundation, when we make that announcement of where we're going, I think that's going to snowball.
I mean, I think some Florida State fans are a little upset, obviously, or however they're feeling. But I want them to understand Loucks has been on lists for other universities. And I want to say this as knowledge for my own University of Memphis Tigers. The Orlando Magic was looking for a new coach a couple years ago, and they were trying to get Penny Hardaway away from Memphis. Loucks was number one on Memphis's list. I think people need to understand that he is well thought of in the coaching community, and that's kind of a big deal. Now, can he recruit like Leonard? Leonard Hamilton was a freaking shark at recruiting. He recruited way out. He outkicked his coverage a lot. We know it. And they should have won, and they would have won the national championship in 2020. We all know that. This was horrendous, what happened to us. And we always get the short end of the stick, whether it's football or basketball, whatever. Baseball, too. We know what happened last year. But I'm just saying, I think Loucks is not unthought of in the coaching community, and I think Florida State did very well. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and let me make one point to that too with what Jen says. I think this is a great hire because of all the things that we've talked about, but it's also a guy who cares about the program, right? He wants to come in. Like I was trying to get some pictures for a graphic that I was trying to make for when they do drop the announcement, and you go look on his Twitter, he's always talking about FSU. Mm-hmm. And so he's a guy that cares about this program, and he's young and he can be here for a long time. And the truth of the matter is they announced that they believe Florida State was looking to spend around $2 million on a coach. Leonard makes around $2.25 million or so right now. I was talking to Michael about this on our show today because he's a big Kentucky basketball fan. I cheer for Florida State. I'm not huge into basketball. I love all of our sports teams. You're not you're not stealing a top tier coach from a Power 4 program for $2 million a year. One of the names that came up when all this came about, one of the kind of the pie in the sky names was Dennis Gates, a guy who helped us have a lot of success here at Florida State. He makes $4 million a year at Missouri. Yeah. You are not going to steal him. So I think for the money,
you could,
right? But
you're not going to. Yeah,
exactly. So for the money that you were willing to pay, I think you hit a home run with this. Now, of course, Sam Cassell would have been a great hire too. You don't know what he was willing to do. And so $2 million, you get him here. I mean, he's coming from California. You're coming to a tax-free state. That probably helps stretch the dollar a little bit further there as well. And then just a minute on baseball, man. I absolutely I don't know if maybe it's because we won 2 games last year and we went to Omaha with the baseball team. I just love this baseball team right now. They're keeping my happiness afloat, my dopamine afloat right now. Yeah. 14-0, takes care of business tonight. I don't know if they're going to get to play the rest of this weekend because of the weather that's coming into town. But last non-conference series, weekend series anyway, of the season. You got ACC play starts next week. You got a midweek against Florida next week, which is going to be huge as well. And I really think it's worth saying that, man, this starting weekend rotation, Joey Vellini put up 11 strikeouts tonight for the second time in 2 games. Huge. He's coming through. How good of a position are you in when Jamie Arnold has the worst ERA of your weekend starters? I mean, you are in a great position. I think you need to find some consistency from your middle relievers and your closers there. But I mean, this is the bats are coming alive. This baseball team is really taking off and doing a great job. And, you talk about some of the new additions to the ACC, man. There's got to be some pissed off people right now because undefeated North Carolina got spanked by Stanford tonight. Duke got run ruled by California. And then I think Boston College, beat Virginia. So there is some upset city in baseball tonight. And I think Florida State, man, if we get hot at the right time, I think this is really a year that you can go out there and you can win the ACC this year in baseball. Keep in mind, it's a new conference tournament. If Florida State finishes top 4, you get a double bye right into the quarterfinals there. Man, I mean, this is just a great thing that Link's got going right now. Like Jen said, that daggone freaking check swing call last year just pisses me off to no end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that's top 3 for me. Like the snub is 1. Leonard getting screwed is 2, which he didn't get screwed. I mean, that was life. But and then the Tennessee check swing is 3 for me. But man, just so much excitement around. Like Vince said, even if football is not great, and I think they're going to make a big turnaround this year. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's 8 wins, maybe it's 9 wins, whatever the case may be. Softball is killing it. Baseball is killing it. There's excitement around the basketball program again with this coaching change. And then I think, football gets back on track. You're going to see just the entire athletic department turn around as well. Shout out to Luke Clanton, getting his PGA card. Like there's so many things to be excited about, with this program, with this university.
I feel like the baseball program at Florida State, a shit coach could be above average. An average coach could make it to the College World Series. I feel like with Link Jarrett, they've got like a legit B-, A-, A-. At this point in time, we'll get into to be A+, you got to be like a Hall of Famer, a Mike Martin type guy to get that kind of accolades. But I think we've got a legit guy who is a plus to the program. Give it a couple years. We should go on another 10, 15-year run of College World Series and hopefully get a couple rings here in the next decade.
Imagine Link Jarrett in the baseball program with Big Ten money.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think he'll bring us our first national championship. And you just look at where they're at. They played, and I've watched every game this season so far. Like they played kind of like crap against Bethune-Cookman the other night.
They did. They did.
Like he's got them to the point now where you can play bad and you can still beat these teams, right? And so I think you're just, man, look at the talent. BJ Gibson, Miles Bailey, Hunter Carnes, the freshmen that they're bringing in, the recruiting that they're doing. You're just seeing them elevate that base. A lot of the guys that are their top, veteran guys, these aren't Link Jarrett guys. These are guys that were already here. He inherited maybe some transfers. These aren't the high school recruits. And I mean, you look at Miles Bailey, it's just knocking the freaking cover off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so, man, there's just so much excitement. I think eventually he'll win. I mean, Tennessee's still out there. They're a freaking animal. But yeah. I mean, they just, man, this baseball team looks really good. And now I think it's to the point where it's like, yes, 14-0 is great, but let's start to see that ACC play. Let's see that midweek against Florida. Let's see them do it against some better teams. They're probably, you don't go undefeated. You're going to drop some games, but man, this team, you can tell they're playing really well right now. It looks different than last year, but man, they're better. I think they're better than last year.
I think they are way better. And are we going to do a March Madness show? Because I would love this. Because I want to tell everybody, the University of Tennessee will not win a national championship. Even if they're a number 1 seed, don't do it. Don't do it. Their coach chokes when he has Kevin Durant as his number 1 star. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Lost to Wake Forest. That's all I'm going to say. There you go.
Don't get me the line.
Just a gift.
Don't get me the line about it all. But what do y'all think about old BJ Gibson? I know I've seen some talk on the timeline about he's so damn good at baseball. As excited as we are about him for wide receiver, that he could actually stay baseball. Yeah. Is that a legit rumor? Is that just people talking on the timeline, or is he so good at baseball? Maybe we don't ever see him at FSU football uniform.
I mean, I think obviously he's really good at baseball, but I think people were expecting it to be a little bit of a slow buildup, like a slow, uptick. But as soon as he's in the lineup, it's like, okay, it's automatic.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting. We'll see how the season goes, right? Because we're just at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and I will say he is technically here on a football scholarship, so I think he's going to be on the team now. Of course, right, when the House settlement passes, you're going to be able to put more scholarships towards baseball. So maybe it does change in the future. And I think one thing is he's getting a lot of playing time as a freshman on the baseball team. We didn't see him a whole lot last year on the football team, so I think you're going to, maybe if you're looking long term, he might have to pick one when he becomes an upperclassman. But I think right now you just want to wait it out and see. Like when he did play last year for the football team, he looked impressive. So like the problem is, I think with the football team this year is you brought in so much talent with Squirrel White and Deuce and all that stuff that I don't know how much he's going to see of playing time on the field. But I do think, with the way he looks for baseball, man, I mean, he may have to make a decision, but I don't think it's right now. I think you're going to see him for a few more years. But I mean, realistically, I think he's probably got a future in both.
It's going to be fun to see. Like they tried to get him involved a pretty good bit, especially late in the year. But I think as long with the rest of the receivers and running backs and everybody else on the team, there just weren't a lot of opportunities. Weren't a lot of times when the quarterback could sit back and hit him on that screen, or if he did get hit the ball handed to him, you're getting hit pretty quick. But I thought it would probably be somewhere in the middle. I'm glad he's doing great, but just because you come in and you're killing it right off the bat from baseball, I wouldn't make that decision yet, BJ. Let's see what happens. Who knows?
Yeah.
You could be a Heisman winner a couple of years from now.
Yeah, and shout out Gage Harrelson, man. That was, to me, like, I don't know how closely you follow baseball. This is like a Jared Verse level addition from the portal. I mean, he is absolutely a weapon for Florida State on the base path, at the plate. I think I don't know if he got a hit tonight, Vince. I was kind of loosely watching, but I think he was on a 13-game hit streak. If he got one tonight, that's 14.
No, he's on 14 now. He's on 14 now.
14-game hit streak, stealing bases, making plays in the outfield. I just love watching the guy play. He does look like the guy from Yellowstone, whatever.
Yes, he does.
He does a lot. But he's what a huge addition to this program.
Been a stark difference. And you see that when you get like plus level coaches in, like, oh, you hear about portal guys. Oh, you brought this guy in, this and that. The guys that Link has brought in his tenure at FSU have like really done well and been pivotal parts of the team. And that was a big thing. That was part of Mike Norvell's, kind of prestige and everything. His first 3 or 4 years here, you look at the 22 and 23 classes, it kind of fell off this year. Can't wait to see it again. Can't wait to see some Squirrel Whites and some of that offensive line play, see what Tommy can do. But we're at like an hour and 11 minutes. We went through all kinds of stuff. I'm kind of blank. I don't have much else to talk about. I do want to bring one thing up here before I forget, though, because I think this was in the production or off air. Jalen Waters, I think they call him Seatbelt. He's a recruit, cornerback, something like that. Somebody we covered last summer as he was starting to, get his rankings and things of that nature. He has now been committed to Florida State first, then Florida. I have my Florida buddy Jacob in my DMs, talking shit. Oh, we got him, this and that. He found a real school. And now here we are 6 months later, whatever it is. He's committed to Miami today. So congratulations to Jalen Seatbelt Waters. He put a post out saying, oh, it's been a long this and that, but God finally showed me where he's home, and I know where he's home. And I put the Will Ferrell Anchorman meme. I don't believe you. So where do you guys think Jalen Seatbelt Waters ends up? FAU, FIU? Where does he end up committing when it's all over in his playing days? Because I've never in my life seen somebody be committed to all three. I've seen Dalvin Cook be with Florida, and then something pissed him off, whatever the case may be. He came to Florida State, and then he murdered those two schools the next 4 years of his athletic career. But for somebody to ingratiate themselves with all three programs, commit, decommit, and then go to the next one, I just had to bring this up. Shout out Jalen. I know you're a kid or whatever.
I
18,
think
17.
he
It's
might.
fucking insane.
I think he might come in second in the Russell Athletics Bowl next year, which means he doesn't win a bowl game next year when Miami only makes it to like the Mayo Bowl or the Russell Athletics Bowl. That's what I would say. There you go. Good luck.
These kids ain't loyal.
No, definitely not. And seeing as it we're only in March, I have a feeling that he will probably commit to one or two more schools before it's all said and done. And whatever. I mean, he's a kid. He's going through the process, and I long ago shed my anxiety over recruiting.
Yep.
I shed it long ago. And once the NIL thing came in, I had glad that I had already shed all of that. So whatever, Jalen, do whatever makes sense for you. And, you can have, maybe you can have, a hat from every school you committed to on the table when it's time, right?
Yeah.
That would be awesome if you think about
Like
it.
a Christmas tree. Like a Christmas tree. Just hang them on the Christmas tree, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do y'all not remember the first Wednesday of February? I mean, I used to take off work for this.
I used to take off
This
work
was
for it.
like, yeah, it was like my favorite day. I'd get beer, I'd sit there and just enjoy it, watch ESPN, just do all the things. Like sit there and, scroll War Chant, do all the things. Nobody gives a shit about recruiting anymore.
Yeah.
Do y'all? Because I don't.
I mean, I care about it.
Right.
But I don't cheer when someone commits, like
Yep.
before the actual quote unquote signing. I don't cheer for it. And I also don't trash other schools when guys decommit, because in the end, I only care about who's showing up for tour duty.
Right.
It's so
That's what I
much
care
more about like a quota now. It's like you just have to have this many number of blue chip guys and stuff. You don't fall in love with one guy and he loves Florida State and you've got this idea for him in the program. It's, oh, well, who has the most leverage and who can offer me the best money? And, oh, well, there's only one left tackle on your roster with experience. I'm going because that's where I can start. And you can't blame the kids to a certain extent. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like business. It is what it is. It's a business now. It's not student athlete and you go and you don't play as a freshman and you're going to gain 30 pounds and you'll be a grown man by the time you see the field. It's a different era. But when the ones like this kid, and, like I said, he's a kid. I'm not trying to hate. This is just a fun show where we talk about FSU football and baseball and everything else. But for a kid to commit to all three of the hated rivals, it's insane. It's like going to Apple for an internship and then taking a job, whatever at X, and then from there going to Windows. It's like, man, you're into some shit, man. You've got all the heavy hitters. You went to all three. Like are you like trading secrets to get in the door and then they kick you out? Like, what's going on there? So yeah,
kids today are too savvy. They're too savvy with it. So I can't say that he doesn't understand the ramifications. I think he does, and he has to know that every time he says I'm committed to a school, that he is inviting the lunatic fringe upon himself. He just is.
Oh.
And a different lunatic.
People who think wins matter in college football. Is that what you're talking about?
Is that what we're doing?
But yeah, so I mean, whatever he wants to do, whatever any kid wants to do, go to the school you want to go to, play for the team you want to play for.
Yep. Yeah. I'm with Vince. Like, I follow recruiting because I cover FSU, but I have emotionally detached from recruiting because until the kids, I can't even really say sign on the dotted line anymore because doesn't even really matter.
It doesn't matter.
Until they show up for tour duty, it's hard to get excited about it. I mean, obviously, we literally did an hour-long show on a deep dive on recruiting today. So, like, I can't say I don't care. But it was more like where Florida State needs to be to compete for championships, not our actual recruiting class. That was a whole different subject. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to. I think the one thing that this shows you is for us as fans, like, you're going to have a Derwin James every now and then that committed in 8th grade, that has a FSU tattoo and things like that. But it shows that, when like you see, oh, well, he was laughing after we lost to Florida or something like that. It's like, these kids, 90% of these kids do not care as much about the logo as we do as fans. They care about the name on the back of their jersey more than they care about the name on the front of their jersey. And that doesn't mean they're not going to play hard for the school they commit to and they play for and all those things. But that's why you can't get emotionally attached. These kids, they don't care, they're not as emotionally invested as we are in this is the logo that I want to play for. You know what I mean? They're just, like you said, man, when I heard the things about like, oh, these kids are asking for $50,000 for an official visit and things like that, I'm like, man, you know what? Just let me know when I need to make a graphic. That's about where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
And they can transfer when they want.
When Travis Hunter happened, I just took a step back and said, you know what? We'll follow it as it gets closer. Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
There's enough stuff to be pissed off about.
Yeah, I was just saying they can transfer now whenever they want. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
They can transfer literally within a month after them getting to the school. It doesn't matter. There is no home. There is no, there's just, they're not committed to the school. They're not committed to the coach. They're not committed to school. It
You
doesn't
know,
matter. It
it's honest
really
though.
doesn't fucking matter.
It sucks for signing day and everything we used to do, but at the same time, it's like dating. It's like it used to be you had to get married. Now, whatever these recruiters sell and the money and everything, when they get to campus, it better be what they expected. It's none of this, oh, we love you, and now it's fucking boot camp, because then they'll just say, like Jen said, like, you literally, there's no need for any of this stuff. NIL, getting out of the whole thing with the kid, they didn't want to let him out of his national letter of intent, which didn't even exist, is whatever they were holding him to. I forget the kid's name. I think it was Nebraska or Wisconsin, and he wanted to go to Miami. They made a big fuss about it. I didn't understand it, because even if they didn't let him out of it, he could have literally just transferred. Like, why do you need to get out of your commitment when you can just transfer? And I get there was money
was
involved.
something going on with that one, Xavier Lucas.
He went outside of the window.
Yeah, he went outside the window. There was something different going on there. But that's fine. If you want to go play cornerback for Miami and be Swiss cheese, you do you, boo. But, there's no such thing as a good Miami defense anymore. But okay, Xavier, enjoy, be blessed. We're all rooting for you, and no, we're not. But that was weird. I don't get why Wisconsin fought that one, because to me, you're losing the court of public opinion in that scenario. And when you lose the court of public opinion, you're losing everything at that point. Just let the kid go.
Boyfriend. You're out there like, please, stay with me, please.
Absolutely.
I love you.
I would say a stage 5 clinger ex-girlfriend, but that's fine. I get what you're saying. I just feel like that was bad. That was really bad for Wisconsin. Why'd they do it? Does anybody know?
Well, I don't know why they did it, but
or whatever it was.
I mean, the deal is, though, it can't keep going like it is.
No.
Right? It cannot. It's going to for a little bit. I get it. But at some point, there has to be some parameters around, a student, being under some kind of legal binding to a university.
It's an unlimited transfer. Why did they ever do it? They did it because the NCAA was fed up with having to enforce the rules. They were mad because they would do some underhanded bullshit and take somebody's eligibility, and somebody would be like, oh, well, you can't do that. So instead of one transfer in a 4 or 5 year college career, let's just go to completely unlimited. Let's go to 10 times as many. I thought one transfer was fair, Vince, right? Once in your career, you can't be tortured and we're doing this bad behind the scenes and you can't go anywhere. I get that. But unlimited, you can transfer twice. When the semester ends, you can transfer.
I don't even mind if they transfer every year. I don't. Mm-hmm. But it has to have some parameters around it. For example, if you are going to be, quote unquote, signed to a school, and part of signing to that school, the NIL money's tied to that, then you're paying that money back.
Yeah.
You're paying that money back. And other teams cannot interact with you unless you are literally on the open market. I love college football, and I hate that it's going to a more pro model. But if we're going to do that, and we are doing that, they have to have the pro things in place, because coaches do not know who their teams are from one day to the next.
Well, in the pros, you're stuck on a 4-year fucking contract when you come into the league. 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I just
realized. Guys, hold on. How long is college? How many years is it?
You got 5 years.
Depends on who you are.
Depends on what you're doing.
I'm just saying, in the NFL, they have a mandatory 4-year fucking contract. You cannot leave unless the team trades you. You do not become open for free agency to that 4th or 5th year. So if you want to treat them like pros, I'm with you. 4-year fucking contract with maybe one out. Like, don't get me wrong, I've been a proponent for, like, you got the portal, let's do it, and these things of this nature. But to just be able to walk out, like, in the real world, you have to be a badass at your job to just, like, be able to walk out and go to another job. I've been there. I'm a journeyman
We
at this,
kind
but,
of
but you can't just fucking, okay, well, I'm tired of this place and go to the next job, and then 30 days go to the next job, because then you've got a reputation and nobody's going to fucking hire you. Like,
we kind of knew this was
I'm
going to
sorry.
happen,
It's just
right?
crazy to me that they can't. The NCAA is so shitty and so just corrupt that instead of having to actually do work and decide to give Daryl Jackson his waiver, give the kid from North Carolina their waiver because they deserve it. Well, no, we just want to pick and choose on who donates and who's related and who's this and that. So they just throw their hands up in there. You'll come back and beg us watch. We'll give you unlimited transfer. And that's just how I feel about it. I'm gonna shut up now. We're getting close to the end of the show, but yeah, that got me fired up here at the end.
The last thing I was going to say on that is that we kind of knew this was going to happen because, the student athletes have had almost zero control forever, and the schools and the coaches had all the control. The pendulum is totally swung the other way now, where they have complete control, and we've got to come back to the middle at some point so we can all enjoy it. Our teams. So we can enjoy the team, not having to wonder, like every time I, think about, the upcoming season, I'm going to wait till the very last minute before I start to memorize numbers because I don't know who's going to be on the team.
Yeah.
That's frustrating as a fan.
No, I agree. And, I mean, it's funny because like I used to love making like preseason hype videos for the team. And now I'm just like, I mean, it's going to be clips of another team because there's none of the same people on the team. So I just basically stopped making these things. I stopped doing a preseason magazine because it was just too hard with all the pieces that are moving. But I'm with Vince. Like I support the players getting paid with parameters. I support them transferring with parameters because Lord knows a coach will pull up in the middle of the night and just dip on you. So I agree with that too. And these kids that I saw one the other day was like this kid's looking at his fourth school or something like that. And it's like, if the kid's got 4 commitments already, chances are he's probably not going to finish at the school he even commits to anyway. But I think Vince brings up a good point. I think it's where the power lies that you saw this coming. And again, not to go political with some things, but when you look at the shift in like empowerment in the students and things like that, the kind of the quiet part out loud is no one wants to be the one to tell the kids no first. And I think that's a hard conversation to have because how many of these court cases have you seen in any facet, NCAA, the thing against Tennessee and Virginia, any of these things, have they told the kids no? Like, we're not going to stand for this. We're going to do none of them. They've won every single court case they went to because nobody wants to be the bad guy because in kind of the social justice era that we live in, you're going to be labeled as like the old man yelling at the clouds or whatever. And so, until somebody steps up and says, no, this is just not sustainable. We're not going to do this. And you can't argue with the players. I mean, because they're trying to get what they can out of, a limited career. They don't know that they're going to go to the pros. And then the programs that they're moving around with, I mean, it's kind of like there's no commissioner for college football to look out for the good of the game. So why would the SEC be like, well, it's not really fair that we're making $50 million more than the SEC. I think we should, or the ACC, we should give up some money. No, you're doing the best you can for your constituents, so to speak, and so they're not going to back off. The players aren't going to back off, and the courts aren't going to put any rules in place. So it's going to be the Wild West until somebody finally says, this is enough.
When somebody cares about the sport.
Right. You need a commissioner. You need like I hate even using the word committee after 2023, but you need some kind of board. That's maybe a better word. That can look out for the good of the sport, right? Because Sankey's never going to stop, and Petiti's never going to stop, and it's just going to be an arms race until you just kind of kill off everybody but the 2 super conferences, which is where, like, let's just get it, rip the Band-Aid off and let's go.
Yep. I think what they need to do is go back to what we used to do. Bring back the BCS computers, bring back all of it, and then allow, like, 12 teams to be in the BCS computers. I don't know why this was wrong. Someone tell me why that's wrong. Put it into the analytics with a computer that doesn't have all those weird well, SEC bias. Did y'all see Peter Burns over the weekend? I mean, I don't know what's going to go on, but like, if people are going to be biased, and I'm going, Peter Burns, really? You're worried about bias with the SEC with your sorry ass?
Well, and for
Give it
clarification,
back to the computers.
when I say board and committee, I don't mean for the playoffs. I mean for the good of the sport. You need a Roger Goodell for college football, not him, but Roger Goodell for college football. That's more what I mean. But I agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with the BCS. I think you should have done BCS for the playoffs. But, Jen, I'm with you there. But, the saying, want in one hand and shouldn't the other, see which one goes. We're never going to put the genie back in the bottle. So we have to figure out how to cage the genie to a degree and make this make sense for everybody, because I think the worst part of this is that the onus has really come back to the fans, right? We got to be boosters. We got to pay for this. You're in an arms race. Oh, and now you got to fund NIL. And, with the House settlement, yes, finally some of the onus is going to go back on the universities who are raking in cash, but that's going to trickle down to us. It's going to end up higher ticket prices, bigger booster donations. It's going to all come back to us. And, it's the truth of the matter is it's hard to ask the common working fan who makes $50,000, $60,000 a year to keep giving out of their pocket to kids that are making millions of dollars. It's going to be hard to stomach that for so long. It's just the problem is right now, you have like the Michigan booster who's $200-something billion or whatever he's worth. You got the guy from Texas Tech just sold his oil company for $4 billion. So like now they can run away and do with whatever they want to do because it's become a rich guy's playground. And that's tough for the schools that don't have it. Like Spanx Lady, what are we doing? Like, help us out here.
Yeah, it's you're right. It's not going to be on us anymore. That was getting it off the ground. Once people figure out how they can legally spend their money and push it out of this shell company, it's going to be subsidized. It's all going to be, it's going to be NASCAR, like the satire of the 90s and 2000s. They're going to have a football team and they're going to have patches all over their jersey. It's going to look like a coat of many colors from Dolly Parton, back in the day, because it's going to be so many different freaking advertisements on it. But, man,
hey,
what a fun conversation.
I complain about it, but if I won the lottery tomorrow, like we're having all the 5 stars, I promise you that. So it is what it is.
Hey, there's no doubt about it, right?
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And I would like to nominate the following people for the College Football Board of Commissioners. Doug Rohan is going to be on that board. I'm going to put not Nick Saban, and also not Greg Sankey, and also not Petiti, definitely not Jim Phillips. Maybe Tiny Hat, right? Maybe Tiny Hat.
Why not me?
Well, I assume the four of us.
I gotta say, I was feeling a little subconscious as I kept hearing the names roll off.
I should have. You're right. I should have started and said outside of the four of us.
The Renegade plant the spear, they're in there already.
We solved college football's problems already.
And there wouldn't be any bias at all.
No.
Our guy Tiny Hat comes in, he says, people were talking about whatever. Jesse said people making 50, 60,000 a year. I think that's like the median maybe nowadays in the US, but Tiny Hat says 50, 60K. I made 41 last year. That the government knows about. My real money's buried out back in a potato chip bag. My guy is getting paid solely in bonuses from his job, and he's out there selling catalytic converters, man. We appreciate Tiny Hat. He's always on the grind. FSU is going to have to work hard for me to dig that up. You can believe that if you want. I know my guy's balling. We'll have to get in here. We'll have to get a college football czar, like he said. I'll put my name in the hat. I don't think I'm qualified. I think the first names you were saying, Vince, probably really are more qualified. But I had to jump on that. When Jen was like, kidding. What about me? I had to get a what about me in there too. But
I know, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Don't put me in charge, because Florida State will be the first 2-win team to be in the playoffs. I don't care.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we should have been the undefeated team in the playoffs in 2023. So
exactly.
The number 1 seed would be Florida State, and number 2 seed would be the scout team for Florida State.
There you go. I like it.
Let's fucking go. Anybody got anything to promote while we're here? I know Jesse's still doing shows. I know Vince is doing shows. Me and Jen are out here just running the roads, having a good time. What do we got going on in Noel Nation? What can people look forward to? We'll start with Vince from Garnet and Noel.
Ryan Eastman and I, Big Papa East. I don't know if you guys follow him on X. You should. If you don't, he's always good for a crazy tweet or two on the daily. But we have a show every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. We also stream it on X and on Facebook as well. So depending on your social media of choice, hopefully you can find us. Mostly Florida State, probably 90%. Florida State. We occasionally have some random topic that we go over, but that's the primary point of it, because that's what else is there in this world. One of the things I will say though, that we are already starting to gear up for the football season, trying to get our schedule lined up of which games we're going to be at to do the tailgate. And also which games we're going to be doing our live shows from here in the Jacksonville area. We do live shows for away games at a brewery here in Jacksonville. I just haven't lined up those dates yet. So everybody's welcome, Noles especially, but we have all kind of rivals that chime into the show too, which I love. Bring it all.
Absolutely. You got to love them. We've had some haters. I think we've been off enough. Jim was talking about earlier with the Tennessee person. I haven't seen many of the Miami people. I think they're all kind of down. It's just FSU people in here tonight, but a ton of fun. Joey Zay says, like, subscribe, and follow him into a dark alley and have your wallet taken. That cracked me up there, but
I
what do you
think
got,
Carrie. I think Carrie will follow us tonight because we posted a show. So I think he'll be in the comments later.
Yeah, we'll
if
get that
anybody wants to
comment.
find out.
We'll get it eventually, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well,
What do you guys got going on at Plant the Spear, Jesse?
You turn the lights back on and the roaches scattered. So that's all it was. They'll come back eventually.
They
Trust me.
sure will.
I figured out with a comment from George on one of our videos that we have a couple of the same commenters, the Miami fans, especially the one that screams in all caps all the time. But I mean, it's
William Green.
Yes,
that's
sir.
his
Yes,
name. What do you got, Will? You ain't been here hating today.
Hate watching and still watching. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, like we're like Vince. We are very much 99% Florida State. We talk some national picture stuff too. We try, like, that's why we did an hour-long show on recruiting just in general today, because there's nothing going on right now with football. So we're just trying to force things. We do talk about baseball. We talk about basketball too. So, I mean, check it out. We do at least one show a week. We try and do more when there's news to talk about. Of course, we also have a website, plantthespear.com. We put out a lot of baseball articles. We put out a lot of football stuff too. It's not so much like a beat site, so to speak, but it's more like a research project. If you follow me or seen any of my stuff or anytime, I'm kind of a college football nerd. So like we like to get into stats and numbers, and a preview for me is 2,000 to 3,000 words. It's ridiculous. I can't control myself. So every time me and my co-host talk, we're like, please keep it under an hour, and it's an hour and a half. So, I think it's something that every fan can enjoy. Obviously, it's good to be back on here on the Renegade Report. I enjoy that as well. So, we're like, I think just over 50 subscribers from 2,000 on YouTube. So we're really trying to push to hit that number. That would be awesome before the season. Vince, I enjoy talking with you. I think this is our first show together. So maybe we'll have to link up and team up and do a show there as well. So, man, just really excited for the season. I got my eyes on a couple of games. I live in the Charlotte area, so it's a 7-hour drive for me. So Miami's on the list. Away game UVA is on the list as well. But yeah, man, we're just really excited about everything going on. Ready for spring, even though sounds like we're not going to get to see a whole lot of things with spring, but yeah, man, just excited about keeping covering FSU, and hopefully we have a much better year to talk about this year. So,
that definitely took a little bit of shine off of this time of the year, not having the spring game and planning all that. Just having that planned for the trip and the different things to talk about, it slowed it down a lot. Plus, all the transfers and the big change with the coaching staff and stuff. I'm kind of glad that they're keeping it secret. Don't get me wrong. Like, I hope they don't let anything out about what's going on at practice. But yeah, we're just talking about it makes it tough. Our guy Tiny Hat comes through with the first super chat of the show here. I'm going to watch the Shames. If you don't know Shames, that's Shamesville, the Miami Shames. It could be Florida. It could be Miami. I think he's talking about the Miami Hurricanes right now. He's going to watch their games on Stream East so they can't get ratings money. FSU only on my TV. Hey, I'm with you, man. I get it. Open it up on YouTube TV, on your phone, put it on the TV, all FSU, and then, yeah, if you're going to watch the Miami game, you just do that use one of those VPNs and pretend like you're in New Zealand or something like that. I love it. We appreciate the $5, man. Yeah, I could use the donation right now. I'm going to throw that towards a massage or something from this company, Builders First Source, working the shit out of me. But Jen, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Well, no, I'm not going to discuss getting a massage, but hey, I love seeing you both. Vince, long time. I mean, I love seeing you in Tallahassee, and Jesse any other time, that we're all in the same arena. Let's have some fun. I cannot wait for the season. I think it's going to be a better season.
Mm-hmm.
Fingers crossed. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, well, very sweet, and I'm gonna say something sweet to Vince and Jesse in a minute. But why are you out? Why is Tiny Hat saying, "Hey, yo, what? I can't mention getting a massage." Y'all immediately go to some nasty X-rated place.
It's a joke.
I work really hard. I need the massages, man. On my lower back.
It's
Ain't nothing wrong with a massage,
George.
Oh, did I get defensive?
Yeah, you got defensive a little bit. You got defensive, and I don't like to be touched. So you're a little wanting of a massage. I was like, well, okay.
Hey, do your thing, Robert Kraft.
Yeah.
All right, we'll cut it off right there. Okay, guys. Tiny Hat, thanks for joining. And yeah, Doug's not here, but big shout out to Doug Rohan Law, VC on Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff. Extremely blessed to have a bunch of good friends that are Florida State people that I've done a ton of stuff with. Of course, our guy Vince, Garnet Nold. If you're not following, if you're not at Garnet Nold on YouTube, subscribe. Go do it at Plant the Spear. Let's help get them to 2,000. I know Garnet Nold's over 1,000 too, so we're trying to get them to 2,000 as well. If you're not following, at Jen Santi 1890 on Twitter, Plant the Spear 1 on Twitter. What exactly is yours on Vince C on Twitter?
VC Noel.
VC Noel on Twitter. Make sure you're following everybody. The fact that everybody came together and jumped on here in such short notice, as we've joked around and being sore and working all these crazy hours, it really was great. I haven't been able to keep up with it. Recruiting, as everybody's talked about, but just everything. There for a couple years, it was nonstop, but schedules change. But as we get closer to Bama, I think we're going to see just about everybody at that Bama tailgate, and I think things will start going in another direction. And I got to read all super chats. I thought we kind of moved past this, but Tiny Hat says, "AG, what you do in a dark room with oil, Asian women, and soft music is your business. Is it only Asian women that give massages? Am I, I'm going to stop. We'll have this conversation on the roast. Love you guys." All our women are laughing. Go Noles. We love you guys. I'm just going to shut up in the next 5 seconds. Anybody wants to give any shout outs, speak now or forever hold your peace. We love you guys. And it's all about the Renegade Report, the Renegade Rundown, Garnet Nold, Plant the Spear, Rohan Law, Spear Addicts, Den Media Group, Dope Talk, all of our friends that we've got to hang out with and that we'll hopefully see at the Alabama game. We love you guys. And that's it.
Go Noles.
Go Noles.
First off, fuck Bama in the road tide. Fuck Tuscaloosa in every city that's close by. Bitch ass hillbilly redneck fans. Auburn almost caught y'all slacking like dress pants. Michigan trash, they ain't got a damn chance. Only Wolverine I respect is X-Man. Sheen ass coach got exposed, still in plays. Damn right I'm bitter, y'all sweeter than lemonade.